Hello, everybody, and welcome to our very first ever vlog from Imagineer and the Support Brokerage Network. We're really excited. We've been doing lots of work on developing our YouTube channel. So we've got lots more video content, which we hope you'll find really interesting and useful. So we thought we'd start with a vlog series, which is a little less formal than some of the other content we've been putting out, where Liz and myself chat through some current issues around health and social care, and where we really have an opportunity to unpack and talk about things and share our thoughts around things a little bit more. So this is our very first, as I said, it's our introduction. So we're going to start right from the beginning and introduce ourselves and Imagineer properly. So my name is Sarah Holmes, and I'm one of the directors of Imagineer and the Support Brokerage Network. And I'll hand over to Liz to introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Liz. I'm the founder and one of the directors of Imagineer as well. I do the training, the consultancy, and basically whatever else comes our way, including the direct support brokerage as well, because one of the things that we hold really close to our hearts is making sure that we're at the front end of doing what we talk about. So, yeah,
absolutely. So I suppose it will be really good for us to get started by giving people a little bit of an understanding of who is Imagineer, what is Imagineer, what's the Support Brokerage Network, and how did Imagineer get started. So I'm going to pass over to Liz, because Liz was the founder and she's the managing director, and she can start right from the beginning and give you a little bit of a picture of how we came to be here. Over to you.
Thank you, Sarah. So, yeah, we're going back like 12 years, really, when we think about when Imagineer started. And it took actually 3 months to think of the name that the organisation would be called. It was really difficult to find something that captured the essence of what I was hoping to achieve through Imagineer and through the collective of people that we'd have around us when Imagineer was up and running. But basically, Imagineer represents the organisation because it stands for using our imagination around what is possible, thinking beyond what is currently available, and thinking differently to the usual service structures. And the engineer part of it, so the amalgamation of the name Imagineer, the engineer part of it is using our skills, strengths, and understanding about making them ideas happen, so that we don't just end up with some great ideas, but we actually see them great ideas in practice. And we've got quite a good track record of that, I believe, now. The 10-year video actually talks through some of that stuff, doesn't it, around what we've achieved and things. But really,
you can find that.
Yes, you can.
It's on our YouTube channel. We're going to keep talking about the YouTube channel. There's a lovely video that tells our story in a lot more detail, isn't it? But let's play devil's advocate a bit, Liz. So you've talked about how you came up with a name for Imagineer and what it's about. But if people have never ever heard of Imagineer before, they've just come across this video on YouTube and they're like, who are these two ladies chatting away? Could you kind of give a bit of background about what that looks like in day-to-day work alongside people? What's the work that we do? What's the imagination bit about? And what's the making it happen bit about? So who do we work with? What does that look like?
Yeah, well, one of the great things about the work that we do is that it's never the same, largely. You know, we've got a really nice diverse range of work that we're doing and projects that we're involved in, and that never looks the same. It's always like this very emergent, what is this about, and where can we put our best efforts into making things happen? So we often don't, we find that we're in very different types of work. We're working alongside a wide range of people as well. But at the core of all that is conversations around how can we make a real difference, and following our mission of creating a fairer society as well. And most of our learning about how to make that possible is the work that we do with individuals, families, and within communities as well. And that's the heart of our work. That's really where we're serving our purpose, helping kind of people see how they want to live the lives. But we do that in such a different way, don't we? Because you can so easily feel like it's a prescriptive explanation of what we do, but really our approach is about working alongside people so that their own ideas about how they want their life to be and how they want to live and what they want to achieve emerges from themselves, emerges from their own opportunity to think that through and have conversations with people. And that's where the imagination bit comes in. So rather than having a conversation around these are the services available in your local area, that emergent conversation is about how do you want to live? What would that look like for you? And how can we make that possible? And that's where the imagination really leans in to that. So we've had some great examples of people setting up their own small community projects, moving into a home that is their home and not a room within a service, and a whole range of things, isn't there? Yeah. So that's really where the heart is.
So I'm still playing devil's advocate a bit because you've unpacked that a little bit. So if we're talking about working with individuals and families and communities, who are the sorts, give us some examples of the sorts of people or the types of people or maybe the life circumstances of the people that we work alongside. Why have they come to Imagineer? Why are they interested in us being able to assist them in having this vision of what a really good life looks like?
When I first set up Imagineer, and you'll recognise this, Sarah, and I'm sure loads of people will recognise this that are watching the vlog. We have a service system that is completely siloed. So we have a service system that has a certain element of the service that's for people with learning disabilities, certain elements of the service that are for older people, and so it goes on. So Imagineer, one of the founding principles is, as an organisation, we are here for anyone. We see people as people, not a label and not a diagnosis. So because we've got that really open approach, it means that we've had the real great opportunity of working with a massive range of people that have come across the organisations from such a wide range of circumstances and backgrounds. And actually, what we've learned is being an expert in them areas is not important. But us transferring our approach absolutely is. That whole thing of the person being in the driving seat and having them conversations, that are rooted in the life that you want to have, it is transferable across. So we've worked with young people, we've worked with people with long-term health conditions, we've worked with people who've been diagnosed with dementia, we've worked with all sorts, and actually, as I'm going through the list, I actually feel really uncomfortable about talking about the list, because even listing the conditions seems completely out of our practice. It's just not what we think about at all.
Let's push into that a little bit then, Liz. So it's interesting, isn't it? Because as soon as you start trying to describe what you do, people want labels. They want things that they can hang their understanding on. And because one of our values as an organisation is about seeing people as people and citizens as citizens and everybody being equal and an inclusive society, it immediately feels uncomfortable talking about those different labels, doesn't it? And yet many of the people that we interact with as an organisation are people who will be accessing perhaps the health or the social care system, maybe for the first time, or maybe they've been accessing it for a long time, but the support that they've been receiving has not been meeting their needs in a way that makes sense for them or that works for them. And that's the case, isn't it? When we start having those conversations, that we start from a place of not wanting to know somebody's label or diagnosis, although it may come out in the conversation at some point, right? Isn't it? But we're really interested in, who are you? What's important to you? What matters? What are you dead excited about? Tell us about your interests. Tell us about where you go and what you do during your week. Or if there was nothing getting in your way, what would you dream to do? All of those sorts of things. And that's our starting point, isn't it? And I was just thinking, it's a funny one, because we as an organisation, talk about the approach of all of this stuff we've been talking about is kind of described as support brokerage. And that might be a phrase or a term people haven't come across before. So could we explain that a little bit, do you think, as well, just so people understand what we mean when we talk about support brokerage?
Yeah, absolutely. So support brokerage is it's an approach, really. I wouldn't call it a model, and it certainly isn't a service. It's an approach, and support brokerage is something that anyone can do, really. It could be the person themselves that's support brokering for themselves. It could be family members, it could be peers, it could be somebody that's working alongside them to provide that support brokerage. And really, the support brokerage brings in that whole element of the planning and the conversations that really helps to build the picture, and then the actions that you need to take to put that into practice. So that might be around mediating and negotiating around the funding and how it's used from the local authority, or it could be about searching the funding available through grant source of funding. It could be about getting out in the community and walking around and seeing who's who and what's where, and doing some discovery around that as well, and finding what possibilities lie within that person's either local area or that community where they have a range of interests. So it's really broad. One thing definitely is support brokerage isn't a step process. You don't do A, B, C, D, and then you get an outcome. It is very much about doing what makes sense at the time and doing it in a way that makes sense for the person. One of the things that's really important around support brokerage is its own history and its own background, and the fact that it started from a place of individual, family, and community. And it really demonstrated itself as being a different way of doing things to get a much better outcome for an individual. And it started off in Canada in the 1970s, and then it came over here. And in the 12 years that we've been providing support brokerage, I know that sometimes the term causes just a massive amount of confusion, because it's like, what is that? What people hear the term brokerage and immediately think of financial services and immediately think it's something to do with finances. And then unfortunately, local authorities have embedded their own brokerage practices in some local authorities. And what that's transpired to mean in people's experiences is having a broker from the local authority finding the domiciliary care provision that's available, and quite often the domiciliary care provision that can provide that at the cheapest going rate for the local authority. And so we here at Imagineer are neither of those things. But the reason, I know we've played with this, haven't we, Sarah, loads around.
Yeah, definitely.
Do we call it something else? And in fact, we had that time away, didn't we, a few years ago, and we were playing with all sorts of change facilitator.
Names around.
Yeah, like change architect. We kind of came up with all these, what else can we call it that makes sense? And I think ultimately, we've probably reached the conclusion that what you call it really doesn't matter. It's what you do that really matters. And that kind of goes into, you were asking earlier about how has it grown? How have people found out about Imagineer? Well, for the first, I would say 9 years, it were people chatting to each other, word of mouth. Have you heard of? You should speak to, get in touch with Imagineer.
So it very much started as a locally rooted thing, didn't it? And obviously the base for Imagineer initially was West Yorkshire, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But that's definitely not the case now, is it?
No, not at all. And it wasn't, I mean, it's probably not been the case for about 5 years, but it'd be great to hear, how did you find out about Imagineer? Because we're not from down the street from each other, are we, at all?
No, I'm in Worcestershire, so I'm a Midlands girl. And actually, when I first got involved with Imagineer, I was living down on the south coast in Dorset. So my reach and my stretch and the way that Liz and I have been connected in different ways over the years has been really interesting as well. So, but it's really interesting because in informal service structures, particularly local authority and health, the concept of support brokerage seems to be very difficult for professionals to get their head around, doesn't it? Because we work in this very open, flexible, creative way. And for me, my journey was that I was working in service land, in provider land. So when, you know, somebody goes for an assessment through the local authority or their health authority, and they're told that they need support and they need a service to meet their support needs, where I was sitting at that point was I was with one of the provider organisations who would then receive that referral and put the person into a service, if you like, for want of a better phrase. But it was always a service that already existed, or most of the time it was a service that already existed and had a vacancy in it. So it was kind of trying to squeeze the person's shape into a service vacancy to fill a gap, if you like. And often with provider organisations, the driver for that would be keeping the business running financially, making sure the service could be sustainable because it had a vacancy that needed filling. And so there was always that element of compromise around, does this person fit the service? Probably not quite, but we'll make it work. Whereas with support brokerage, it really starts with the person and what do they want and what do they need? What does good look like for them? And then working out in partnership with the person what the solutions could be, what the options could be, and really doing that exploration around what makes sense to the person as the starting point, rather than here's a list of the vacancies that are available in your area. And it's a very, very different position to start from, isn't it? And whilst I was in service land, I found that a very uncomfortable position to be in once I grasped that this was the way that we should be working with everybody. But yeah, I was working in provider services where my role was to try and fill those gaps in those services. Or if we didn't have a gap, could we create something? And the creating something was probably more personalised and more bespoke, but often it still came with caveats around costs and location and whether or not we could recruit staff in that area. Again, rather than starting with what works for the person, it was what can we as a service provider do to receive that business. And so there was always that level of compromise. And in the end, I felt so conflicted. I decided, I don't know if it was a brave or stupid step, but I decided I needed to work out a way of doing things where I didn't feel compromised and I wasn't tied to a particular organisation's way of doing things. And so I branched out and became self-employed. And that was really the point we started doing some really intense work together, wasn't it, Liz? Which was a few years ago now. And I came on board as a director with Imagineer, and I work 3 days a week as part of the team as well now. But I still have maintained that ability to do work which sits with my values and ensures that I'm not feeling compromised. And that's what I love about Imagineer, isn't it? Is that we're creating it every day because it's about what's in front of us and who's in front of us.
And I think the whole purpose of our work and what's the word I'm looking for? Does what we do work? Does it have value? Does it make a difference?
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
I think the one thing that we can do, I think sometimes on a weekly basis, we're talking about this has just happened. So like last week, I sent the message out, didn't I, on Friday to say the offer on the bungalow has been accepted. You know, yet we have these moments where we realise that through the work that we do and the approach that we have, we are making significant differences in the way that people have, you know, are receiving the care and the support that in their lives, you know. So, yeah, it's great. I don't know if, did you hear the ringing as you were chatting?
No.
I had just a really badly timed phone call messenger thing. So
well, you're fine. It didn't come through.
I hope that doesn't show on the recording. But yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I think Over to you. Over to you.
I was just thinking what you were saying. That's one of our key values as a team is that we stop and we celebrate when those little moments happen, don't
Oh,
we?
yeah.
And actually, the celebration of achievement, of outcomes, of progress is a significant part of our value base as an organisation and as a team, isn't it? Because it's about recognising the moments where something really positively drives things forward. And it's like making a mark, isn't it? It's like making a benchmark and saying this is the point where we got to here. And that's important with support brokerage, isn't it, as well? Because
Yeah,
with
absolutely.
the person and alongside the person and their family, we look back together and we recognise the distance travelled. That's a really, really important part of our work, isn't it? It's measuring the outcomes, the impact, and the distance travelled. And we do that with individuals that we work with. We do that with communities, whole communities that we work with, and we do that with organisations that we work with as well. But it's rooted in how we do everything, isn't it?
Yeah,
That really
absolutely.
important part of capturing and celebrating and recognizing success, achievement, accomplishment, distance traveled, outcomes being achieved. And for some people, the outcome can be a really tiny thing, can't it? As well as the big things. And they're important to celebrate too. But the tiny things for some people can be massive. And it's really important that people take ownership of that when that happens and that they recognize that they've had a part in their own progress. It's not something that's been done to them or prescribed to them, but they've actually been an active participant in moving forwards in their life. And that's what helps people to build confidence over time. They become really good self-advocates. They start to believe that they can achieve more because they've recognized their previous achievements. So they start to dream bigger dreams. They start to say things like, well, why can't I have my own business? And why can't I set up my own band? And why can't I go traveling abroad? And that's where we really start to see people really taking control of their own future. And that for us is a real measure of success, isn't it? Because we're not needed anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting as well, isn't it, that one of the things that's been a really strong learning point for all the work that we've done, and building up on the work that we've done previously around person-centered planning as well, is when you take the time out to map across what we do with all the outcome frameworks and all the different measurement tools that they are within the world of health and social care, there's a real clear map between what we do and the outcomes that are there from a strategic level as well.
Definitely.
And I think this is where we bring a lot of value for, because we're small, because we're dynamic, because we can be quite fluid and responsive to different things and new things that are emerging. We can always be in that really strong position. Whereas for a lot of organisations, big local authorities and big provider organisations, it can be really difficult to have that focus on the direction, what we need to change and how we need to change things and what can be done better. Whereas we can work alongside big organisations and really bring that real clarity as to what would make the significant changes, what's the pivot points in the organisation, where the conversation styles can change, and so all that experience we have of working alongside families and individuals and communities leads into also being able to provide a wealth of really valuable and practical insight into what makes a difference. And so that's really where we bring so much in that area of work as well. So Sarah, seeing as though you are our lead person on marketing and you've been doing an amazing job at actually getting us onto social media and getting the website looking so much better than it has done for years, with thanks to Pivotal Marketing as well. How do people find out more about us? Where are
Great. I'm glad you asked, Liz. So we will try and make a habit of repeating this information on all of our vlogs and other sources of content that you'll see us putting out. But we have a number of different social media platforms. So we're on LinkedIn. If you're a professional or a practitioner who is really keen to network with other like-minded people, and you're interested in what we do, and maybe you fancy a chat with us, or maybe you just want to be following some of the content we're putting out there so you can start to interact with it and engage with it. We love when people comment on our content. We love to get conversations going. So on LinkedIn, you'll if you search Imagineer and Support Brokerage Network, we have a company page there, and we put out content pretty much on a daily basis on that page. Once you follow the page, it'll come up in your news feed. Both Liz and myself are on LinkedIn separately as ourselves as well. So if you search Liz Leach Murphy or Sarah Holmes on LinkedIn, you should be able to find us with our mugshots on there as well. We're also on Twitter. So obviously with Twitter, it's a little bit more of a narrative and commentary on things we see and hear going on, and things that other people are posting and conversations that are going on that are very current. So if you're a Twitter user, you can find us at Imagineer CIC. And the same for Facebook. So we have a Facebook page as well, which is Imagineer CIC. So we put out lots of content across those 3 social media channels, and we've also now got our fab YouTube channel up and running. So again, if you were to go onto YouTube and search Imagineer and Support Brokerage Network, you'll find our channel. Please subscribe. We know people like to just click on videos and have a little scroll, but if you subscribe, it means it will drive up our presence in the search engine results, and it also means that more people can find our content and find out about the work that we do. And we're really keen to spread information about self-directed support and support brokerage, and really, you know, the wider issues around citizenship and inclusion and an equal society for everyone. So if you could subscribe to our YouTube channel, that would be amazing. And we also have a mailing list. So if you pop onto our website, which is www.imagineer.org.uk, you'll see that there's a join our mailing list or subscribe button on the website. You can click that and it will take you straight in. Just need to fill in literally a few little details, your name and your email address. You can join our mailing list, and we send out a monthly newsletter, and we also send out direct emails which will be of interest to you. So you can tick your preferences around what information you want to be sent, and then we can send out information if you're interested in training, if you're interested in opportunities to partner with us on different things. We have blogs that go out regularly, so we've got a blog page on the website, but we also include the blogs in the newsletter. So there's loads of different information that we share, and we try and keep it really varied and interesting each month. So there's different stuff going out for our audience, so it's really worthwhile joining the mailing list if you can. And we promise not to bombard you with loads of emails. It's just when there's something important to share with you. Can you think of anything I've missed, Liz?
I think you have covered everything. We also, the website. Did you mention the
Yes,
website?
I did.
You mentioned the website.
Did. Yeah.
So you have covered everything. Absolutely.
Brilliant. So I think this would be a good place for us to check out our little closing thing that we've decided we're going to do for every vlog. Yeah. So let's give it a go. So Imagineer's mission statement is to facilitate the development of a fairer society. So what, in your imagination, does a fairer society look like, Liz?
In my imagination, there's so many things that come to mind, but the one that I really want to focus on today is that we have an education system that enables all children to grow up together, irrelevant of who they are and what their background is, so that children can grow up understanding difference and understanding how to be there for each other at that age group. So that's what I would love to see in our society. What about for yourself?
Yeah, a world where everybody is seen as equals. And I know that's a really lofty ambition, but I believe that everything we do in our work and in the way that we conduct ourselves day to day as individuals, in how we have conversations with people, in the language that we use, all of those things contribute towards role modeling and demonstrating how to treat other people as equals. I would love to see that shifting in our time and with our contribution. Great. So,
and in the true nature of support brokerage, then, Sarah, what is it we can do to help make that happen?
Well, this is where we're putting an appeal out to you guys. So one of the things we're doing to help make that happen is starting this vlog series. And we also have our blog. We also have our social media channels. We're really keen to start having conversations with people who have something interesting or a little bit challenging or a little bit different to bring to the conversation. All of the things we've just been discussing today. So if you are interested in joining the conversation, if you would be interested in maybe helping to write a joint blog with us, or perhaps you're even confident to be on camera and have a conversation like this. Doesn't have to be perfect. We've stumbled over our words today. We've talked over each other. We've had awkward silences. It's all good. This is very much a natural conversation. It's not scripted. We have a few points that we want to cover during the conversation. But if you think that might be something you could do, please send us an email to info at imagineer.org.uk, and we'll arrange a time to get together and have a chat with you to see what it is that you'd like to share. And we're interested in such a wide range of topics. So even if you think, oh, well, that's not really anything I'm having anything to do with at the moment, we will find a connection. That's what we do. We're all about making connections. And if you've just got a similar outlook on life, if you love people, if you love the planet, if you love building community, we'll find a connection in common with you, and we'd love to have a conversation. So please do get in contact, and please check out our social media. Please check out our YouTube channel. Go and have a poke around on the website, because there's loads of great content on there as well. And we really look forward to bringing, hopefully, our next vlog to you with our very first guest, who we will be interviewing. So we'll leave you in suspense. If you keep an eye on our social media, and if you sign up for our mailing list, and if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, then you will be first to find out when that new content is available. Thank you for listening, if you're still with us, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Sarah. I enjoyed that very much. See you again soon.